Welcome to Xi Jinping Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: as climate crisis spirals, what on earth are our leaders waiting for? Country of promises, Brazil's struggle to lead climate policy at COP28. Putin praises wise and far-sighted Henry Kissinger. What to expect from tonight's showdown between DeSantis and Newsom? COP28 climate conference begins with controversy and early financial breakthrough. As climate crisis spirals, what on earth are our leaders waiting for? The Independent. The world has just 6 years to curb emissions before we exceed the planet's ability to cope, according to Simon Steele, Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Steele's warning came as the COP28 climate conference began in Dubai amid a series of broken climate records. The 14-day summit is being attended by 200 countries, although the leaders of the US, China, and Russia are not present. Earlier this month, the UN Environment Programme warned that the world is on course for a 3-degree rise in temperatures this century. The meeting was opened by the United Arab Emirates Energy Minister, Sultan Al Jaber, and, unusually, by a pre-recorded statement from Prince Charles. The opening day saw the finalization of a deal to support nations already suffering from climate change. The fund will be given $100 million each from Germany and the UAE, $76 million from the UK and $17.5 million from the US. Country of promises, Brazil's struggle to lead climate policy at COP28. Al Jazeera. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva is seeking to position Brazil as a global leader in the fight against climate change, as he returns to the United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP28. However, critics argue that Lula's efforts are undermined by Brazil's growing oil and natural gas sectors. Lula aims to fill the leadership vacuum left by absent world leaders like US President Joe Biden and China's Xi Jinping. Brazil's government has already announced that it will send the largest delegation in its history to COP28, with over 2,400 registered participants. However, critics argue that Lula has not gone far enough, and accuse him of failing to bring key stakeholders into his climate change agenda. Dynamum Tuxa, executive coordinator for the Articulation of Indigenous Peoples of Brazil, has argued that Lula's proposals are empty words without political support at home. Brazil's Congress is currently conservative, with Jair Bolsonaro's party holding the most seats of any single group in the lower chamber. This has stymied Lula's goals of advancing economic policies and indigenous rights. Putin praises wise and far-sighted Henry Kissinger. Telegraph. Russian President Vladimir Putin has praised former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger as a wise and far-sighted statesman who played a crucial role in easing Cold War tensions and strengthening global security. Putin drew a comparison between Kissinger's pragmatic approach to foreign policy and U.S. President Joe Biden's decision to send weapons to Ukraine. While Kissinger was an influential figure in U.S. foreign policy, he was also branded a war criminal for his role in secret bombings in Cambodia and criticized for his involvement in the coup in Chile. What to expect from tonight's showdown between DeSantis and Newsom? The Independent. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and California Governor Gavin Newsom will participate in a one-on-one debate moderated by Fox News' Sean Hannity. DeSantis is the second-ranking Republican in the primary field and will face questions from Hannity about his campaign's performance. Meanwhile, Newsom, who has repeatedly denied any presidential ambitions, will likely face questions about California's homelessness epidemic and cost of living crisis. The debate is seen as an opportunity for voters who want the parties to move on from Joe Biden and Donald Trump to see new candidates emerge. COP28 climate conference begins with controversy and early financial breakthrough. CBC. The president of COP28, Sultan Al Jaber, has overseen the creation of the world's first climate damage fund, a breakthrough financial agreement that aims to help developing countries cope with the impacts of climate change. The fund, established with $100 million each from the UAE and Germany, was met with a standing ovation from delegates at the UN climate conference in Dubai. The agreement follows a declaration from the World Meteorological Organization that 2023 will be the warmest year in human history. Al Jaber, who is also CEO of UAE national oil company ADNOC, has faced criticism over his ties to the oil industry. Chinese bankers told not to show off their wealth as economy struggles. Telegraph. Chinese bankers have been instructed not to flaunt their wealth as the country's economy continues to slow down despite government efforts to stimulate growth. China International Capital Corporation, CICC, one of the country's largest banks, advised employees to avoid wearing luxury brands and revealing their incomes. The instruction comes after Chinese authorities criticized bankers' lavish lifestyles, and amid increased scrutiny of financial institutions following the government's scaling back of public availability of economic statistics. China's manufacturing sector shrank for the second consecutive month in November, raising concerns about businesses' confidence in government policies. China says U.S. arms sales to Taiwan are turning the island into a powder keg. Associated Press. China's defense ministry has called on the U.S. to stop interfering in the disputed South China Sea and Taiwan, saying American arms sales to Taiwan are making the situation more dangerous. Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party is turning Taiwan into a weapons depot and a powder keg, said Senior Colonel Wu Qian, China's defense ministry's top spokesperson. China claims the self-governing island as its territory and says it must come under its control. China mourns Kissinger, a most valued old friend. CNN. China's foreign ministry has paid tribute to former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, who died on November 17, as being instrumental in the establishment of bilateral relations between the U.S. and China. The Chinese leader, Xi Jinping, has sent his condolences to President Joe Biden. Chinese social media has mourned Kissinger's passing, with his death becoming the top trending topic on the microblogging site Weibo. Kissinger is highly regarded in China for his role in establishing diplomatic relations between the two countries, through his secret meeting with Chinese leaders in 1971, which paved the way for President Richard Nixon's visit the following year. Since leaving office, Kissinger has been regarded by Beijing as a potential source of support in navigating increasingly hawkish U.S. administrations. Chinese state-controlled media has celebrated the former diplomat, and a glowing quote from an interview he gave in 2011 has been widely shared. Kissinger's most recent trip to China was in July this year, when he met with Xi. As controversial in death as in life, tributes for Henry Kissinger. The Independent. Tributes and statements have begun pouring in for influential U.S. diplomat Henry Kissinger after he died aged 100 at his Connecticut home on Wednesday. Kissinger leaves behind a complex legacy, remembered as a master of global politics by some and an alleged war criminal by others. As President Richard Nixon's national security advisor, he was responsible for negotiating the U.S.'s exit from the unpopular Vietnam War. He won a Nobel Peace Prize for his diplomatic work, but his legacy was then tainted when it emerged he had authorized the secret carpet bombing of neutral Cambodia, which killed at least 150,000 civilians. Even after leaving his official diplomatic capacity, Kissinger's influence didn't wane and he continued to advise several administrations. George W. Bush remembered Kissinger as one of the most dependable and distinctive voices on foreign affairs. Former President Richard Nixon's children also paid tribute to his former national security advisor after his death on Wednesday. Cambodian scholars have a different take on the late diplomat to that of many world leaders, instead remembering Kissinger for his controversies. To many Chinese, Kissinger's death ends an era in U.S.-China relations. New York Times. Chinese state media and social media users have expressed their condolences and highlighted the role of Henry A. Kissinger in promoting closer relations between China and the United States. Kissinger's role in organizing President Nixon's visit to China in 1972, which led to the establishment of diplomatic ties between the two countries, is often seen as a golden era in bilateral relations. China has sought to emphasize this era of engagement as a counter to what it perceives as the Biden administration's efforts to contain and compete with China. In July, Kissinger was given a red carpet welcome during his visit to China, including a meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Ladies and gentlemen, viewers from the 6 Degree World, I am your resident observer, Dr. Six. Today, we dive into the world of climate change, international politics, and tributes to a controversial figure. Let's take a closer look. First, we address the urgent climate crisis. The COP28 climate conference has begun, and the clock is ticking. According to Simon Steele from the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, we have only 6 years to curb emissions before we surpass the Earth's breaking point. But where are our leaders? The US, China, and Russia are notably absent. It seems like they're playing hooky while the planet burns. But fear not, some progress has been made. A climate damage fund has been established to aid developing countries, thanks to the United Arab Emirates, Germany, and other generous contributors. It's a step, albeit a small one, in the right direction. Speaking of leaders, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva is trying to position his country as a global climate change leader. However, critics argue that Lula's efforts are undermined by Brazil's growing oil and natural gas sectors. It's like saying, I'm here to save the day, but let's keep drilling for more fossil fuels. It's a classic case of mixed signals and empty promises. Lula needs to bring key stakeholders on board and prioritize actions over words if he wants to make a real impact. Moving on, we have Russian President Vladimir Putin praising former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger as a wise and far-sighted statesman. Now, this is an interesting tribute considering Kissinger's controversial past. While he played a role in easing Cold War tensions, he was also involved in secret bombings and criticized for his involvement in a coup. It goes to show that even in death, Kissinger remains a polarizing figure. In the realm of politics, we have a one-on-one debate between Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and California Governor Gavin Newsom. It's an opportunity for new candidates to emerge and for voters to move past the shadow of Joe Biden and Donald Trump. DeSantis will face questions about his campaign's performance, while Newsom will likely be grilled about California's homelessness epidemic and cost of living crisis. Let's hope they bring their A-game and address the issues that matter most to the people. Now, let's shift our attention to China. Chinese bankers have been told to tone down their flashy displays of wealth as the country's economy continues to struggle. It's like telling a peacock to hide its feathers. But with China's manufacturing sector shrinking and concerns about business confidence, it's a reminder that not everything is well in the Middle Kingdom. Maybe it's time to focus on economic policies that benefit the people instead of indulging in luxury brands. On the international stage, China is calling out the US for interfering in the South China Sea and Taiwan. China claims Taiwan as its territory and accuses the ruling Democratic Progressive Party of turning the island into a powder keg. It's a tense situation that requires delicate diplomacy. Let's hope cooler heads prevail and we avoid any escalations. Finally, we bid farewell to Henry Kissinger, who passed away at the age of 100. Kissinger played a pivotal role in US-China relations, and his death has sparked tributes and controversy. While some remember him as a master of global politics, others see him as a war criminal. Kissinger's legacy is a reminder that history is complex, and our judgments are often colored by our own perspectives. In conclusion, it's clear that the world is facing multiple challenges, from the climate crisis to geopolitical tensions. Our leaders need to step up and take decisive actions. We must hold them accountable and demand real change. And as always, I invite you, my witty and intelligent viewers, to share your thoughts and ask questions. What are your ideas for addressing the climate crisis? How can we navigate the complexities of international relations? Let's engage in a lively discussion and find solutions together. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.